Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today for a Saturday? Man, it has been challenging today. I will tell you. I have been up for hours, you guys. And for the last couple of days, I just been going through and preparing myself for these Idaho 4 videos. And when I tell you I'm like an emotional person right now, I had an article that somehow I was not able to find, and I had to literally go in my history on my searches to find the article. I was ready to cry because, again, there is so much going on with the investigation of the deaths of Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Zaina Kernodle. We called them the Idaho 4. These 4 university students, I think about them. I think about their families, their siblings, their parents. I just think about the loss that they feel. I watch sometimes just videos of their family members talking about them, remembering them, and it's very, very sad. And I do that because I want to remind myself, always keeping these 4 victims in the forefront for justice. And some days, y'all, it is really, really hard because I'm trying to have a balanced approach and focus on the evidence. And sometimes, I watch a lot, I read a lot, and I have to, be very careful about what I'm bringing on this platform. And I want to stay on the evidence. I want to keep focused on the evidence because it's so much conflicting information, and we're gonna talk about it. I have numerous videos coming up, and we're gonna go over this evidence. We're not targeting a suspect or suspects. We're just talking about the evidence, the crime scene, this property, 1122 King Road in Moscow. What happened? What happened to Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zaina? They were killed. They are gone. They are deceased. But we really, really, really don't know how and why. And the reason I say that, I go back to the 911 call. It's still bothering me. The reason it's bothering me is because if you can recall, there were reports that the crime scene, this property, this 3-story home, that it was allegedly covered in blood. We've seen blood on the outside of the house. If you watch the news broadcast, you could see blood coming down the walls in the kitchen. And knowing that if all of these 4 victims were stabbed, brutally stabbed, multiple stabbings, that type of vicious attack would cause the blood to drip, blood to splatter, blood to cast off, and that blood would be on the walls, it would be on the floor, the bedding, it would be on the clothing, it would be everywhere. And what's really hard for me is when I listen to that 911 call and I don't hear anyone have a sense of urgency. I don't hear anyone say they need help, they need an ambulance. And what I found out from doing a video about Dylan Mortison and Bethany Funk that, and I want to get this right. So let me go. Listen, you guys know my notes, right? These are just notes from the last couple of days. So I wanted to go back. I wanted to ensure that what I'm saying to you is accurate. I go back, I confirm this information. I want to say to you that in a video that I did speaking about Dylan and Bethany, I noticed and I went back and I confirmed it. I went back to the source that Dylan planned to return to nursing school because she wanted to help others in need. Now, this triggered something in me because I actually know nurses. I have family members that are nurses. I have people that are very close to me that are in the medical field that have provided medical care in different positions in the nursing field, in the medical field, in home health care. And the one thing that I know is you have to care about your patients. You want to help. You want to come to their aid. You're gonna check on them. If you see trauma, if you see an emergency, if you feel that there is something wrong medically, you're going to go and you're going to check on them. And what is odd to me is, and I had to go back to recall that Dylan was going to return to nursing school. That was said about her. She's going to be in the medical field caring for people. How did she not identify the circumstances that surrounded everything that led up to and happened that night, the night of the murders? How did she not see that that was an emergency, that those other roommates, including Ethan, had a traumatic event? They needed medical attention. They needed someone to come and check on them, check their pulse, see if there was any need to have an ambulance come. Where is the care? Where is the concern? And you're going into the nursing field? It's very, very hard for me to understand. When I listen to the 911 call, I hear no sense of emergency. I don't hear anyone ask for an ambulance. I don't hear anyone describe, including Dylan, that the victim, Zaina, had been stabbed. There was no indication that there was blood. They said that she had been drinking the prior night and she was passed out. There is a huge difference being passed out, in my opinion, and seeing someone, your friend, your roommate, attacked, stabbed. I can't let this go. The scene, the crime scene, the property 1122 King Road, it does not match the 911 call. No one says they see blood, that blood is everywhere. No one says that the roommates appear to be deceased. They're not moving. They're not alive. Their bodies are hard, cold. There is no life in them. Their skin has changed colors. Rigor mortis has set in on their bodies, and they are deceased. They are without life. They have no color in their skin anymore. It's darkened. They are dead. You don't hear that in a 911 call. I try to go back and I try to find these articles that said there was blood everywhere in the house. I don't know if they're scrubbing the internet, but it's almost impossible to find these articles now where it says when police got to the property that there was blood everywhere. The problem that I have, the issue that I have, if the scene is as described, why did it take the lead detective, Brett Payne, to come to the scene 4 hours later? We're going to go back, okay? We're going to go back to the affidavit of Brett Payne. And my apologies if I'm not jumping right into this article. I apologize to you. But I am leading up to discuss the handrail and also the fact that the FBI, they did not use an authorized genealogical database. It's coming. But I have to lay the foundation so we can be clear, okay? We can all be on the same page with the same understanding. Okay? Please. I'm going to wrap it all together for you. I will make it clear. On page 1 of the Exhibit A of the statement of Brett Payne, okay? I'm going to start at the second paragraph in my reading. On November 13th, 2022, at approximately 4 p.m., we know that the 911 call was made, and now we can clearly say, I believe it was Bethany's phone, but let me just confirm. I want to be clear. I have my notes. Just allow me 1 second so we can be clear. Because we're going to talk about it. At 11:56 a.m., Bethany Funk calls 911. This statement, okay? Exhibit A. At approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker and I, so this is the statement of Brett Payne, responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, hereafter the King Road residents, to assist with scene security and processing of a crime scene associated with 4 homicides. Four p.m., 4 hours approximately later. Now we know there was an interview with the coroner, Kathy Mabbitt, and in that interview, she said she arrived between 5 and 5.5 hours approximately at the 1122 King Road house at the crime scene. That is 5.5 hours later, approximately, from the 911 call. Do you see the problem? Do you see the concern? Where is the urgency? Where is the emergency? I'm trying to gain an understanding of what happened. And when I tell you this, the 911 call does not match the crime scene that we were told existed. Blood everywhere. 2 bodies on the second floor, stabbed to death. 2 bodies on the third floor, stabbed to death. Blood everywhere. The scene doesn't match what the 911 call has on it. I've been thinking about this, and I've been really trying to gain an understanding. To me, in my opinion, this 911 call, which alleges Zaina is passed out. There's no mention of blood. There's no mention of a stabbing. There's no really mention of her physical state, that she's down, she's laid down, she's injured, she's hurt. It really, really makes me feel that this was not a stabbing, that this was an overdose. Why are you referring to Zaina, or for that matter, any of the victims, the roommates, including Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie, as not being stabbed, as not seeing blood, not describing the scene, unless there was no blood, there was no stabbing? It sounds like an overdose. The person was drinking. That was what was said on the 911 call. The person was passed out. I can play the 911 call again right now if you need me to. Just give me a minute. I have to get it because I just don't have it up. My apologies. I'm going to try to find a very short version that was released. Let me go into my history. My apologies. In fact, I should be able to pull the 911 call quickly from the other video the other day because I shared it. Okay, let me pull it. Okay, so I'm going to play the 911 call again. This video, and I'll share my screen to do that. I just want you to hear it. And you please comment. Please tell me what you think. This video is provided by CABC Philadelphia. It's titled Frantic 911 Call from Idaho College Quadruple Murder Case Released. She's Not Waking Up. Let's play it. It's less than 2 minutes.
911 location of your emergency. Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. What is the address of the emergency?
1122. One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Can I just tell you what happened, pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check. But we have to. Did you pass out? What's wrong? She's not waking up.
What does that mean? She's passed out and she's not waking up. It sounds like an overdose to me. Okay, I'm going to leave that point there because I'm going to go more into detail in a separate video about the exchange, the text messaging, the online activity, the calls made between and by Dylan Morrison and Bethany Funk. I'm going to do that in a separate video. I just needed to get my thoughts out because the 911 call is bothering me. And when I think about it, when I think about what is being said, what is not being said, they're not saying that they see blood. They're not saying that this is a stabbing. They're saying and alleging that there was a passing out, that she was drinking, referring to Zaina. They're not saying anything about a stabbing or blood. Seeing blood, seeing a lot of blood, seeing the roommates look deceased. They have no color in them. Things that you can visibly see and describe. They're not saying it because I don't think it happened that way. But I'm not sure. I'm just assessing the call and what was not said because it doesn't make any sense. But let's discuss what I'm going to talk now about, which is this DNA. This DNA that does not belong to Brian Koberger. They're saying that it's unknown, that it's male, but what they're not saying is it doesn't belong to Brian Koberger, the suspect, the one that has been arrested. It's blood. It's blood that does not belong to the victims. So we're going to take Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, Zaina Cornolo, and Kaylee Gonclaves, their DNA, and compare it to the DNA that's found on this handrail, and it doesn't match. And it also doesn't match Brian Koberger's, and this is blood. So again, as I said to you a long time ago, I have a whole video on defensive wounds, right? That the attacker would be in a battle. They would be struggling. There would be a fight. And we know that Zaina and Kaylee, they had defensive wounds. That means that there were cuts. There were cuts to the fingers, possibly, to the face, to the head. Severe cuts, cutting a finger off, slicing the throat, possibly. Cuts on the arms that show you're blocking, you're fighting and blocking. So when we find blood at the crime scene, we cannot ignore it because that attacker that's wielding the object, if that's a knife, or attackers using different knives, they could have been injured. They could have been scratched. They could have been cut. And we know that Madison Mogan, she had three unknown mixture of male DNA under her fingernails. Remember, they told us that Madison was in the bed sleeping? They actually told us all the kids, all these young adults, excuse me, not kids, were in their bed sleeping. So, how does she have three male unknown DNAs under her fingernails? And again, this DNA does not match Brian Kohlberger's DNA. And I want to also say something else. And I just want to make it a, a fair assessment. I have a video about the defensive wounds, and they have just released a picture of Brian Kohlberger the morning of the murders. And it's only a chest above picture, but you know what? He doesn't have any scratches. He doesn't have any scratches on his face that we can see, his neck, his hands. And my concern is whose blood is that at the crime on the handrail, on the glove? Whose DNA is under the fingertips of Maddie Mogan? Because clearly we can't see any scratches, abrasions, cuts, bruising on Mr. Brian Kohlberger. Let me pull up that picture and show you. I might have to do a separate video just to express this more. It's really, really frustrating. Let me show you the picture that was recently released. And I think they thought it was a got you moment, but in reality, it actually goes in line with what I've already said. He doesn't have any scratches, cuts. He's taking a selfie. It looks like maybe in a bathroom with a thumbs up. It looks like he's getting dressed. He's got a button down shirt. It's on a Sunday. It's probably, I don't know, 9, 10 in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, I guess. I don't know. Where are the scratches? Where's the bruising, the marks, the cuts? Stabbing 4 people if they were stabbed. You're going to see some bruising, some cuts, some scrapes, some abrasions. Because you have a knife attack, and because we know two of the victims, allegedly Kaylee and Zayna, they fought back and they had defensive wounds. How would Maddie get the DNA of a mixture of 3 unknown males? Again, not Brian Kohlberger's DNA under her fingernails. I think Kaylee receiving an upwards of over 50 stabbings was placed on the bed. She had defensive wounds. I believe her body was picked up and placed on the bed, possibly for a S assault. Possibly. And I believe Maddie Mogan, she may have had to fight also to get that DNA under her fingernails. We know that the DNA that was found on the handrail was not Brian Kohlberger's. If it was, they would tell you. If the blood that was found on the handrail was Brian Kohlberger's, they would tell you. If the blood that was found in the gloves, If that was Brian Kohlberger's, they would tell you that. But they can't because they don't know, because they didn't try to look. They didn't try to investigate. They didn't try to get that DNA process. They know it's male, but they don't know a match. At least that's what they say. That may not even be true. They may know who the DNA matches to, but they've already got their suspect. They said, and I'm going to read that to you, that once they got Brian Kohlberger, they didn't have to put the other DNA and have it processed. Well, why the hell not? What if there were multiple killers? What if, again, as I've said before, there was more than one killers? At one point, the coroner, Kathy Mabbitt, and then one of the parents of the four victims kind of described a situation where their wounds were different. As they said, they didn't match. They're not the same. Does that mean that we have multiple attackers and multiple weapons? Possibly, in other words, multiple knives, different knives. Do we have a serrated knife? Do we have a straight blade knife? We don't know, right? We don't even know if the K-bar knife or the K-bar knife and other knives was involved. We don't have the answers. Now, what we could do, and I'm going to do a separate video on the K-bar knife purchase that allegedly Brian Kohlberger made, we can take that information, obtain the purchased knife, the K-bar knife that allegedly Brian Kohlberger purchased, and compare that knife to the wounds of the victims. But again, as it has already been said over these past 2+ years, that the wounds were different. So it may mean that there were multiple attackers and multiple weapons, i.e., in other words, different knives. Remember, as I talked about in the K-bar knife video that's in the series, the collection of 8 videos that I did, you can have different K-bar knives. You can have different knives in general. You can have a serrated knife. You can have a straight knife. You can have a long knife. You can have a wide blade knife. It's all types. So we have to look at carefully when the autopsy happens, the size of the wounds, the type of the wounds, the cuts in the skin. How wide is it? Because you cannot necessarily say the length, because you can have, this is the body, and there's a stabby. You don't always go all the way in. It's different lengths. So we can't necessarily say the length of the knife. What if the blade is 10 inches long? What if the blade is only 4 inches long? You get something like that. 10 inches. That's a big difference, right? So there could be different weapons. What if the cuts are this wide? I'm trying to, okay, I do like that wide. What if some cuts are just that wide? What if some cuts are this wide? That's why the conversation was the wounds didn't match. And what it means in layman terms, you got multiple knives. You have more than one knife, which makes it tend to lead that there's more than one attacker. But again, we're not even here to go over that. It's just I'm laying the foundation for some upcoming videos. Again, we're going to talk about that purchase by Mr. Kohlberger, okay? So let's get to the article. I have something else that's pressing on my mind, but I'm going to share that in a different video. It's coming back to my memory, and I just want to make sure I'm not overlooking it. But I will save that for a different video, because it's really coming to the point where I have to acknowledge that the 911 call, coupled with the crime scene being bloody, coupled with the actions of both Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen the night of the murders, It doesn't add up. Is it possible? Is it likely that the way they are describing the events happened the way they're describing it? I can tell you right now, anything is possible, but is it likely? I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you why, but it will be in a different video. But it goes to all of these things that happen that are in play right now in this case. But I do want to go over the video at hand. It's very, very important that we talk about the handrail and we talk about how the FBI has finally admitted, we're in February of 2025 in this article, the murders of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zayna were in November of 2022. It has finally come out now with full disclosure. I won't even say full disclosure. There has been an admittance by the FBI that they use an unauthorized genealogical database. And what does that mean? What can be done about that? Is that evidence going to be allowed? Can they break protocol? Can they do whatever they want? Can they live outside of the rules that are set up, the protocols that are set up, the requirements? Can they break the rules? And if and when they do, what happens now? What is next? That's what we need to know, right? I can only shake my head. It's incredibly sad. This case is incredibly hard. This is so sad. We got to get to it, y'all. This article is coming from CNN.com. It's dated February 26, 2025. It's titled, New Details Emerge in the Case Against Brian Kohlberger, the man accused of fatally stabbing 4 University of Idaho students. The article is by Holly Yan and Jean Casares. More than 2 years after a quadruple homicide devastated Moscow, Idaho, a judge unsealed the transcript of a recent hearing in the case against Brian Kohlberger, the man accused of stabbing 4 students to death in an off-campus home. The hearing, which was closed to the public, came after defense attorney Ann Taylor claimed investigators acted inappropriately when using investigative genealogy to try to isolate a suspect. And this is the thing, in every area of this case, the evidence it's been pushed to the max, scrutinized, the car, the year being wrong, them saying the murders happened at 3 and then changing it to 4:30, right? This DNA, this touch DNA with the sheath, not having any blood on it, being placed in a bloody crime scene, right? Excuse me, not placed, being allegedly found in a bloody crime scene. Them saying the car is going in this area, right? But then there's evidence from Brian Kohlberger's cell phone that he was not in this area, right? Them saying that Brian Kohlberger was stalking the girls. Then later coming out and saying Brian Kohlberger was not stalking the girls at all. We got questions. Let's continue with the article. Investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG, is a relatively new forensic technique combining DNA analysis with genealogical research. Authorities can take an unknown suspect's DNA profile and upload it to a public database to learn about the suspect's family members. Pull it down a bit. Investigators can use that information and other evidence to build a family tree and identify potential suspects. But the defense's attempt to get a judge to suppress the IgG evidence failed. A judge previously entered not guilty pleas for Kohlberger after he stood silent at arraignment, and Kohlberger's murder trial is expected to begin this summer, with the prosecution seeking the death penalty if the 30-year-old is convicted. Because of a wide ranging gag order, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and attorneys for victims' families and witnesses are prohibited from saying anything publicly aside from what is already in the public record. Here are some of the new details revealed from the transcript of the closed door hearing. So here it goes. A lead detective in the case, Moscow Police Department Detective Corporal Brett Payne, said he didn't hear Brian Kohlberger's name mentioned until December 19th, 2022, more than a month after the killings. That was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening and we were told Brian Kohlberger's name. Payne testified. Payne acknowledged he didn't mention the investigative genetic genealogy in a probable cause affidavit for Kohlberger. What led to that decision? Taylor asked. That decision was a collaborative decision, the detective responded. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI in much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement. So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate any sort of information. It was simply, can we validate Mr. Kohlberger's involvement in this incident or can we not? That was it. As a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit, Taylor asked. Yes, ma'am, Payne responded. DNA testing on parts of a knife sheath detected a single source, said Rylene Nolan, an Idaho State Police forensic laboratory manager. The lab tested samples from the knife sheath for touch DNA, which can come in the form of skin cells that are shed on items being touched. An analysis swabbed the entire leather portion of the strap, both top and bottom, and then the underside of the button. Nowlin testified. She did not swab the top of the button because that was determined to be the most likely place for fingerprints to be found. The defense asked Payne about a blood spot on a handrail going between the second and first floors of the home. So I'm going to show you the property. Okay. At least a picture of it, because now we're talking about it. Yeah, this is probably the best picture. So let me share my screen. Okay. So there was a handrail between the first and second floors, okay, and that's where the blood was. Again, we don't know whose blood it is, but it's an unidentified male, so we know it's a male source. And we don't know if they're going to be able to test that. We don't have the answers yet, okay? but I just want you to see this picture so you can follow with me. And again, look at the ladder on the side of the house. Look how you can come from the second floor down. You can go from the first floor up. You have to consider it all. We can't rule out anything and we can't rule out anyone. But the handrail is going from the first to the second floor. So does that mean that the killer or killers left out of the house from the second floor going down to the first floor out the front door? Or did the killer or killers come from the second floor and go down the first floor and touch the handrail? We don't know. Allegedly, from the affidavit, the person, I'm going to use the exact words. I have the affidavit right here. Okay. I want to get the wording right. Okay. So Dylan Mortensen on page 4 of Brett Payne's statement. Dylan Morrison, and this is the last paragraph. Dylan Morrison stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan Morrison described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan Morrison as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. Okay. So if blood is on the handrail between the first and second floor, and Dylan is saying she saw someone in this all black walk past her, go to the sliding door. Well, who put the blood on the handrail? It's not any of the roommates. It's not Ethan Chapin's blood. Who put the blood? Whose blood is that? Is there more than one attacker, more than one killer? It belongs to someone. And then what about the 3 mixed DNA male source under Maddie Mogen's fingernails, and she was found on the 3rd floor? And what about the bloody glove? You know, we have a lot of concerns. Okay. Let's continue. Lab testing linked the blood to unknown male B, Taylor said. The defense asked Payne why authorities didn't immediately search for the identity of unknown male B. Why did you not pursue that person? Taylor asked. It's a simple question, right? At that point in time, we had already received Mr. Koberger's name. The detective responded. And from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile into CODIS would remove the previous one we had from the knife sheath. He said, CODIS is the nationwide combined DNA index system, which includes DNA profiles of convicted offenders, unsolved crime scene evidence, and missing people. That doesn't even make sense. That does not make sense. But let's continue. So if memory serves, the discussion was we'll hold off. We'll stay with the one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time, Payne testified. Why would you not? This DNA, this blood is at the scene. Why would you not test it? What if there's more than one killer? What if there are multiple killers, multiple people involved? All of these samples are from males, multiple males. 3 mixed male DNA under Maddie Mogen's fingernails, it's a mixture, and then the DNA blood that's found on the handrail, all male. So if memory serves, the discussion was we'll hold off. Okay. It was not clear from the transcript whether the detective pursued the identity of unknown male B at a later time. So if you didn't know then, can we find out now? Can we try to find a match for all of this unknown male DNA? That's reasonable doubt. That is reasonable doubt. Did the police do enough? Did they do a complete job? Did they do a thorough investigation? Did they look for all potential killers? Let's continue. Idaho State Police had a contract with Houston based Othram Laboratory for certain types of forensic work, Nolan said. Othram specializes in DNA sequencing combined with genealogy mapping. That DNA sample was delivered by Moscow Police Department in person to them at Othram Labs. Idaho State Police Laboratory System Director Matthew Gamet testified. I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston and down to the Othram Laboratory. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. After Idaho authorities delivered the DNA sample, Gamet stayed in touch with Othram about what type of analysis we were asking them to do, also what type of searching, he said. So we're going to put more value on touch DNA, skin cells, than blood on a handrail. They should have been given equal weight. They should have tested that DNA. Let's continue. I remember they asked specifically for consent to do certain types of searching. We had to authorize things through memos and whatnot of them doing certain searching. Specifically, I believe it was family tree DNA that they needed an authorization for, said Gamet. Family tree DNA is one of two main genealogical databases that allow searching by law enforcement, Payne said. Another genealogical database that law enforcement can use is GED Match Pro. Genetic genealogist Leah Larkin testified. Those are the only two databases of any significant size that allow forensic investigative genetic genealogy searching, Larkin said. Ancestry forbids it. 23andMe forbids it. MyHeritage forbids it. Not allowed. Okay? Many of the biggest genealogy sites cater to customers who simply want to know about their ancestry and might not want their DNA data to potentially be used by law enforcement. In recent years, after law enforcement used some of the most popular genealogy sites for criminal investigations, many companies changed their terms of service. Othram, the lab company in Texas, stopped its work for the case on December 10th, 2022, Taylor said. The FBI took over, and we've heard that by December 19th, 9 days later, they made an identification, the attorney said. That timeline is significant because Othram's matches were, as in their own words, in their report, those matches were low, Larkins testified. She noted Othram had recommended testing four brothers to get more information. Four brothers. But if you went out and if you approached those men, even if one of them said, yes, you can test my DNA, the testing itself would have taken some time. Getting a kit to a person, getting the spit, sending it to the lab, having it analyzed, and it wouldn't have led to the crime scene profile because it was the wrong family branch, Larkin testified. But isn't that the right thing to do? It's over 2 years later. You had the time to do the work. You had the time. Mr. Kohlberger waived his right to a speedy trial. Why haven't you done the work? So going from low matches to an ID, or at least a tip, whatever they were calling it, within 9 days, that's right there told me they had gone into a database they were not supposed to be in. CNN has reached out to the FBI for a response to the accusation that it used a genealogical database inappropriately. Prosecutors did not directly respond to that claim during the hearing. If it wasn't true, why can't you say that is a lie? That is not true. If it's not true. Larkin says she also saw screenshots from GED Match and email communications. Unlike GE Match Pro, which is smaller and allows law enforcement searches, GED Match is just a superior open database and does not allow searches for criminal investigations, Larkin said. So you also was in GED Match. You weren't allowed to do that for a criminal investigation, but you did it anyway, allegedly. GD Match has far more users, and any kid in the system that is public, you can see their matches. So if you are in GD Match and I am in GD Match, and let's say we were cousins, I could go in and look at my kid and I would see you in my match list, but I could also go into your kid and see me in your match list. Larkin testified. But that wasn't a criminal investigation, right? The example you're giving. That's ancestry. Okay, let's be clear. In GD Match Pro, law enforcement might not see those same matches. Eventually, the FBI admitted they had uploaded to MyHeritage, a database off limits to law enforcement, Larkin said, citing a document shared with the court. Kohlberger's trial is expected to begin in August and last several months. Prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty if Kohlberger is convicted. In the meantime, the families of the victims, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Zana Connerto, and Ethan Chapin, continue the long wait to learn the suspect's fate. But Goncalves' family expressed relief that the judge did not suppress the genealogy evidence. We are thankful to the court for a timely decision and appreciate the work the prosecution has put in thus far. The family posted on Facebook last week, in the big picture of life, justice is just moments away. But where is the justice for breaking the law? You can break the law, you can do whatever you want to do, and you don't have any responsibility. What are they going to do about that now? They admit that they did it, that they used an unauthorized database that they weren't supposed to use, they were not allowed to use. So what happens now? What happens to that? Coming up, everybody, we got some videos that we're going to be hitting this case hard. And they're surrounding Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, their actions and their inactions. We're going to talk about it. We're going to contemplate things. We're going to try to have an understanding, because right now, I don't have an understanding. The choices, the decisions, the lack of decisions that were made have been catastrophic. And it appears that there was no urgency, there was no emergency, there was no fear, there was no threat. If it is true that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk remained in this property prior to, during, and after the vicious attacks of Ethan, Zana, Maddie, and Kaylee, it is beyond horrific, heartless, and diabolical. To hear the screams to see the blood, to hear the commotion, the fighting. It's a travesty. It's beyond sad. I honestly don't have the words. Please let me know what you think. How do you feel about law enforcement not taking the steps to uncover, discover, investigate that blood that was on the handrail? Also, the three mixture of male DNA under Maddie Mogan's fingernail clippings. What about the blood that was found inside the glove? What type of glove was it? Was it a latex glove? Was it a winter glove? Was it a cotton glove? Was it like a when you're washing dishes, you put the yellow glove on? What kind of glove was it? It's latex, plastic. It all matters. It all matters. Why don't we know this, right? Why didn't they do the minimum effort? We need answers. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to bring forth the videos about Brian Kohlberger purchasing a K-bar knife, allegedly. Also, I want to talk more about the ongoings between both Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, and also their activity during allegedly the time of the murders. I would love to know what was their activity prior to the murders. About maybe Saturday night, maybe 9 p.m. on. I would like to know what is in those text messages. What is in that activity? Because the activity that was recently released, it's astonishing. It's shocking. Um, yeah, we're going to talk about it all. So, thank you for spending this time with me. Please comment. Please let me know your thoughts. I will be checking the comments and I will respond accordingly. Um, I want you to remember, please stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody.